Welcome to the July 2023 Composing Competition live stream event. Happy to have you here. Today, we're going to be listening to 15 finalists who were asked to compose an original piece of music based on this artwork by David Frashesky. If you can imagine, there were a lot of similar themes throughout all of the compositions that came in, but the requirement was it had to be instrumental, or if you used vocals, no lyrics, just because it's not a songwriting competition. Had to be 90 seconds in length and had to feel like it actually belonged in the world of David's artwork. So today we're going to be listening to the 15 finalists. We'll be ranking them. I'll talk a little bit about how that works in a second, and then we'll be crowning our top 3 winners. And for our winners, we have, for third place, the country guitars and country violin sample packs from Loot Audio. They said I could pick whatever I wanted, so I thought those were appropriate this time around. We have the full innovation bundle from Bliss, and from Spitfire Audio for first place, we have the eDNA Earth library. So thank you to Loot Audio, Bliss, and Spitfire for helping us out here. So also, this is running on my main channel right now, but there is a separate channel now for the composing competitions. So if you're not watching this live, or if you want to see it later, you're actually going to find the recording there instead of on the main channel. So if you're looking for it later and you can't find it, it's on the composing competitions channel separately. Okay, so I'm joined by our 3 esteemed judges. Welcome back. All been with us before. First, we have Christopher Siu. Christopher Siu is a classically trained pianist, composer, and songwriter, MIDI orchestrator, and educator who's worked with artists including Tina Guo and Catherine Dern, Stephen Mellon, David Wise, and Rumi Official. His passion for Golden Age Disney scores and Nintendo soundtracks is reflected in his own music. He always strives to write memorable themes that impact the listener in an impactful way. He's dedicated to helping musicians find their voice and produce the music they've always dreamed of. If you're ready to improve your compositions, orchestrations, and mixes in a major way, you can watch Chris's free workshop, The Complete Composer's Framework, on his website, christophersiu.com. That's Christopher S-I-U, as you can see on the screen. So thanks, Chris, for being here.
Thanks so much.
Welcome back. Next, we have Rachel Hardy. Rachel Hardy is a Canadian composer and vocalist specializing in music for film, TV, and video games. She's currently working in-house at a video game company as a composer and music supervisor on an upcoming open-world RPG in the Dungeons & Dragons franchise, which sounds pretty awesome. Thanks for joining us again, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we have Gavin Leeper. Gavin Leeper is a composer inspired by Japanese games and anime, a self-taught jazz musician and Japanese cultural aficionado. Gavin is regarded as a YouTube expert on the music theory of Japanese video game music, anime music, and other contemporary Japanese genres. So, Gavin, yokoso. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
All right.
I love it when you do that.
Yeah.
What's that?
Every time.
I love that when that happens.
Mata, no, kurikaeshite. The scoring works on 3 levels. We're listening for composition, relevance to the image, and production value. So composition means things like melodies, orchestration, form, motivic ideas, all these, kind of different things that are kind of the core of the notes. Relevance means, does the interpretation seem to make sense? It may not be like our exact interpretation of the image, but does it belong in the world of the artwork? And then production value is basically, does it sound good? Is it well mixed? Are the instrument choices appropriate? Is the performance convincing? And all these different aspects. And so we keep track of the scores kind of behind the scenes, because this is meant to be just a fun, friendly thing. If you are one of the 15 finalists and you want to know your scores, just ask me on Discord or email me later, and I can let you know specifically what they were. I think that's everything. Are we ready to hear some music?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get prepped here. So the first one we have is The Brooding Outlaw from Veselin Radnov. And I'm going to remember to mute if we can all do that as well.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess I'll kick things off. I thought this was a pretty unique take. Being in C sharp minor, there's this like flat five, right, with that G there. Dun, dun, dun. That I think that added a lot of flavor there. It almost sounded like a more of a Middle Eastern sort of thing, right, with that touch. And I think this Veselin really leaned into that quite a bit in the melodic choices. And I think that was kind of the main element to focus on there. So there was a very clear melodic focus, which was here. I think it was mixed pretty well. I feel like the solo string in the latter half was maybe a tad loud though, just coming to the front a little bit too much for my personal taste, but overall it felt pretty cohesive. And I think the bass guitar there did a pretty good job in establishing more of that modern gritty sort of feel to it too. So it had a nice mix of the acoustic stuff, but maybe some like more of the electronic as well in the bass. And yeah, overall it sounded really cohesive, really smooth. And yeah, I think the harmony and the orchestration did not get in the way of the main melodic element, which was the main feature in my opinion. So I think Veselin did a great job.
Do I go next?
Yeah,
Go for it.
Okay. I really like that you had kind of a darker take on this, and I thought it suited the picture well, actually, kind of with the mist in the bottom of the picture, which is kind of a detail I didn't notice that much. It seemed like a very pleasant picture to me until I heard this, and I was like, okay. Great building of tension. This is kind of my opinion, but I think that first kind of little bit when you're just building the tension to get into the theme, I think you could even condense that down a little bit, maybe. I don't know. I think that the transition going from the first part into the second part with that bass guitar worked really well, felt really natural. I really loved the theme and the slightly detuned instrumentation. I think was a really cool addition to like the overall palette of the piece, and it made it really unique. It really adds to the character. And yeah, I thought the production was quite nice also.
Yeah, echoing what both of y'all have said. Yeah, I thought that it was pretty interesting to have something that kind of mixed orchestral elements and what we would want for or like expect from a Western score, or like as in a Western, like the film genre. And yeah, I guess I was curious. I kind of heard similar things to Chris, that certain elements were a little far up, so mix wise didn't quite sound like they were in the same space. So that kind of broke the image for me a little bit. I'd need to listen again, but I think, yeah, I agree that the solo strings toward the end were sort of the most that way. But it might also be, well, you know, with those solo like banjos and guitars and things like that, they were also pretty close, which is, I think, you know, more or less a decision I agree with. And yeah, I appreciate Rachel pointing out that like it's not obvious that our character here is a strictly lawful good, to put it in D&D terms. So I think this was fitting for that.
Nice. All right. So there's some questions. Some people are kind of hearing mono, some are hearing stereo. So I tried reloading the thing in the background. We'll see if it's any different. I'm also just opening Logic because sometimes live streams change the audio settings when I just open Logic in the background. So we'll try that too, see what happens. But yeah, we're ready for the next one. I think. Okay. All right. So next we have One Last Ride from Aviv Sugar. All right, how about Rachel starts us off?
Sure. This is really cool. I like that you can kind of hear a story forming. It's definitely got a distinct shape to it, which I thought was really great, really smooth. The progression was really exciting. I love that really exciting shift when it just takes off, which is very fitting for the picture. You know, as if you're riding off into the sun or whatever. I appreciated that it was very upbeat. I find that composers, including myself, tend to just drag a little more than going too fast. And I really liked the pace of that. I thought it was very exciting. Transition going into that part was really, really smooth. The ending was very strong. Great overall mix and production, especially after it picks up. I think the first kind of little half could have used maybe a little bit of production polish, but I thought it was a good mix. I also think this is opinion, but in the very first little bit, you could even strip it down even more if you want to give it even more dynamic and even more shape throughout the piece. I know you started right off the bat with choir, which I think works, but that's always an option as well.
Should I go? Okay. Yeah, I mostly want to comment on the strength of the theme here. Like that was super memorable. I would probably need to hear it one more time to be able to hum the whole thing back to you, but I can hum parts of it back, which is like that really just grabbed me. So, you know, as someone who's on team good notes, I like it when there's good notes. Great notes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, totally agree with both of you. Like, amazing theme, great mix. Those were like two standouts for me. But I think that I really like the tempo pickup. Like, not a lot of cues do tempo shifts, and it was definitely noticeable, but it wasn't abrupt either. Like, you took a couple bars to get into it, and with that, you also introduced more instrumentation, and you really just picked up the pace, and everything just felt that much more intense, which was awesome. And I really like that. I don't know if it's just me, but I got like Thomas Bergerson vibes from this, Ryan, a little bit, especially in the latter half with like the mix felt pretty modern, compressed, but not to the point where it felt squashed. Like everything felt like it could be heard pretty well. And as far as the quality, we could hear, I think everything came through pretty transparently. And I think it was just those definite chord choices that you could tell what the chords were, but seemed to make sense. And like Rachel said, they were telling a story in a natural way. And then you just had that nice heroic finish. We could enjoy it as a whole body of work instead of, maybe certain elements poking out or ducking down as being like distracting us from the listening experience. So overall, I think you paid great attention to how we would interpret it as a listener. And I think you matched the image your track to the image quite well. So great work.
Nice. All right. Yeah, I know Gavin's team bassoon, but I don't think there's much bassoon in these ones this time around. Sorry, Gavin. Okay, let's see. So our next one is Saddleback Rider from Blue Lava. Okay. I think Gavin will start us off on this one.
Yeah, I thought this one was a lot of fun. I think I had to dock it in terms of relevance because this sounds. I really like it because it's like Breath of the Wild E. To this sounds like to me this sounds like Rivali's like Western adventure, especially because of like the accordion and some of the instrumentation choices. So I guess like an alternate version of the artwork that leans more into that style, this would be an awesome fit for. So I personally prefer it stylistically, but might not be as close a fit for the image.
Yeah, it was super cool. I really like the vibe of this one too. And I think my main two notes would be number one, all the way through, I kept wanting to hear an additional mid-range element. I think that was like the melody was really clear for me. The percussive elements were all there as well. But there was something, I felt like there was a slight frequency hole maybe in the mid-range somewhere. Like there was that like strummed guitar-ish thing in the middle there. But I feel like maybe one more additional tonal element to have also an additional rhythmic character could fill in the mid-range just a little bit more so that the melody has even more support. For me, that was just the one thing that was missing there. And then at the very end, I don't know if you actually need to hold that chord as long as you did there. I feel like you could just dun, 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 and then just let it fade out and that's it, you know? Because it was so high energy and a nice climactic finish at the end, I think would have served the piece perfectly. And maybe it's just the strings holding it longer. Maybe feels like you're trying to fade out when it already kind of did the job, like reaching that high energy, and just let us appreciate that moment there. And but yeah, overall, super fun track, and like it was like you can really feel the excitement there, and it just has a lot of energy that kind of catches you and pulls you along. So that's very nice.
Yeah, this was a really fun track. I think the pace was just perfect. I think it really keeps the momentum going throughout the whole piece. I will say the earlier rendition of the theme, for some reason for me, it was coming off a little bit like medieval, like bard kind of music. For some reason, that's just kind of what I was originally getting. And then I felt that it definitely got more Western later as you kind of bring in more Western elements. I think if you maybe just tighten up the Western in the earlier part just a little bit, it might sell that Western off the bat a little better. I think it still came through as Western, but I was just getting a few things where I was like, oh, I could hear this in like a tavern. But it was really cool. The theme is developed really nicely. I like that you kind of build it up each time even more, and add some more, elements and counter melodies. It's really cool. I will say my one note about production is it does feel very quantized. I would loosen up your quantization a little bit, just to give it just a slightly looser, more, live kind of feel. But that's my only note there. I thought it was a really, really fun track.
Awesome. All right. On to the next one. We have Terra Canyon, which is the name of the artwork as well, from Ludovic Charpentier, who also said we can just call him Ludo as well. I'm going to mention there is a way, if I turn off echo cancellation, we can get stereo. So I will try that, I guess. I'll have to turn it off. We'll hear the track. I'll turn it back on. So we'll add an extra step, but it should help. To those who've had their tracks played already, like we've heard them in stereo. It's just the live stream version, so don't worry. But this should help fix things a little bit.
Very cool. Yeah. Quite a different take, I feel like. Yeah, maybe the I guess just a more laid back feel was a very interesting approach to take with this. And in the key of D major, I really appreciate that minor 4 you threw in there, that G minor before that resolution, that plagal cadence, and then you went further into the G minor area and kind of developed even further. So it was a very clear structure to this piece, which I did appreciate there. I just thought maybe you could have a little more fun with the melody overall. It felt like it was bordering on sort of like an underscore in a way, where the melody holds certain notes quite a long time, so that there's less ability for us to group certain motifs together to hear them in a kind of a clear melody. But if that's kind of what the intention was, then I think you served that pretty well. I do think the accordion got a little bit lost in the B section, though, just a tad. As you introduce more instrumentation, it seemed to fade in or fade out, I guess, a little bit. Was a bit overwhelmed by the other instruments, but maybe that was just on my end. But yeah, I think overall it was a great approach. And yeah, I'm just thinking maybe having the melody move a little bit more, especially in the first section, might make it even more interesting. But that's just a personal note there. But overall, really nice.
Yeah, this was a really nice take on it. And I thought it did suit the picture well, with the sun either coming up or setting. I'm not really sure. More peaceful take is nice to hear. The percussion right at the start made me really excited. And then it kind of left right away, like after the first 4 bars. I would have loved to just hear more of that. Even later on in the piece, bring it back. Otherwise, I mean, it seemed pretty forefront, like, it was like, oh, this seems like a very main element. And I kind of missed that a little bit. But yeah, I think kind of what Christopher was saying, maybe it could have benefited by just some sort of breaking up of the structure, switching up the harmony, maybe the instrumentation a little bit, jazzing up the melody. But yeah, as like an underscore kind of thing, I think it works well. It's very relaxing. I think it great piece.
Yeah, agreed. I enjoyed. I've enjoyed the range of takes we've heard so far. Like all the way from maybe he is a bad guy to like maybe things aren't so bad, I guess. Yeah, and it was interesting to hear kind of a more laid back and lazy kind of vibe for this. Yeah, I kind of share the sentiment that depending on the goal of the piece, I'd say you'd have the green light to go a little crazier here if you wanted to. That's not always the case, right? A lot of the time we need to pull back to leave room for what's going on in the media. But I think in this case, depending on the application, you could definitely jazz things up a little bit more.
Yeah, the context is just the image, right? And our imagination, I suppose. Oh, yeah. Cool. All right. Next, we have Western Sunrise from Anton Akimov. Do our echo switch. about Rachel starts us off?
All right. This one was really, really interesting for me. You compose really well, and it's interesting to listen to. Like, it never gets boring. It's always like, oh, what's that? Oh, what's this? It's like, oh, super awesome. I think it's great. Really well orchestrated as well, produced nicely. I like the ending a lot. I think my biggest maybe note for you is it seems like you get inspiration from a lot of places. I was hearing, Western, obviously, with like tiny little hints of like classical and old Hollywood and a little bit of like Disney Star Wars at one point that I was kind of getting little tastes of. And so I think it's great that you seem to get inspiration from a lot of places, and I think that's going to serve you really well. But at the same time, I think this piece could maybe use just a tiny little more focus, I guess, on maybe one or two of those inspirations just to really dial it in. But that's kind of a personal opinion thing. I'm curious to hear what the others say. But yeah, no, great piece, really fun.
Gavin, you up? Oh, we lost his audio.
Oh no.
Wouldn't be a live stream without technical difficulty, right? No. How about Chris? Why don't you go ahead and we'll see if he can.
I
get
can
it.
go.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So as a harmony guy, my heart is exploding. I love this. This is so cool. I just love the unexpected twists and turns at pretty much every moment. But I do have to agree with Rachel that a little bit more restraint might work well in this context, because yes, you had maybe two areas in the piece where I felt like you had that Western vibe, but then very quickly we kind of departed and it went into something else. And I actually really liked how you started off with sort of that romantic old Hollywood sound. And then as soon as it jumped into the Western stuff, I'm like, okay, fine. I liked what we just heard, but I guess we have to stick with the Western theme, so that makes sense. But yeah, maybe just choosing one style or two max and then committing to that would work. But in terms of the orchestration, the production, the mix, the composition itself, I could see this totally fitting to a moving film where the scenes are constantly changing. You have tons of stuff going on in the screen. But for a standalone image, maybe it just varies a bit too much. But harmonically, this is, for me, like a dream come true. So good stuff.
Gavin, are you back?
1, 2. Yes. Oh, amazing. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just wanted to. I really liked just this overflow of ideas, like this too. Oh, and that, and the kitchen sink, and that sort of maximalist approach was really fun. As Rachel was saying, like there's always there's a spectrum that you have to locate on in terms of like cohesion versus explorativity. I don't know. In this case, we chose to throw a lot of different stuff in, which is great. There might be room, depending on the context, to focus in and get a little more cohesion together. But as an exercise, I think this would maybe serve well as some sort of like a real piece. So you could show like, yeah, I can do that, and this too, and then the woodwinds doing their thing. You know what I mean? So I had a lot of fun listening.
So there's positive and negatives to the exact same thing sometimes, I guess, which is good. Okay. Next one we have is Blow Smoke the Ranger from Jay Connor. All right. Gavin, if you could start us off on this one, please.
Sure. I guess the first word that came to mind when thinking about this arrangement was staccato. Like it's all steps and very brass focused, which I thought was really nice. And in a way, kind of relevant for the scene too, because I guess what it conjured for me would be like. The horse running, maybe we're ransacking a train and the quiet parts like we're hiding in between or something like that. I think it really helped with the scene, the story that was trying to be told. Yeah, I think that's the main thing I'd point out.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Like the vibe is very jumpy and exciting, and honestly, I think a big part of that plays or comes down to the role of the bass. The harmonic foundation is really laid down in this D minor sort of sound, and I don't think at any point we've varied that much from that D pedal point on the very bottom. So it kind of gave you that foundation to play around with your orchestration and the chord stuff on the top, but it always felt like we were always settled on this one mood in terms of that scene being the D. So I think that was pretty smart to choose to go with that approach. And so you played around with those chord choices in the middle. The orchestration was varied, and there was not much of a theme or a melody, I guess, because there was so much stuff happening with the switching around with the instrumentation, playing around with those articulations, and having that foundational harmony. It just helped us create a certain mood that you never really varied from, which is a good thing, I think. So yeah, just a very solid piece overall, and I thought it was relevant to the picture as well. So I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, no, I thought this was really awesome too. Another really cool, kind of slightly darker take. There were a few moments when the melody would pull back, when I wish there was a little more going on in that bass. I thought the bass worked really well, as Christopher was saying, as a bass for the whole piece. But yeah, sometimes when that kind of those top elements would pull back, sometimes it was a little bit like, okay, just because those top elements are so exciting that when they're gone, you miss them. I thought that the orchestration, especially in those forefront elements, was really exciting. Yeah, no, I thought this one was great.
I really liked this comment here. The stormtroopers have landed in Arizona.
Yeah, it does feel appropriate. I like this title a lot too. I think a good title helps as well. All right, are we ready for the next one? We have Dusty Ride from Nachel Nussbaumer.
Very cool. Yeah, I kind of felt like this is a piece that does want to continue, right? And it doesn't feel like it's complete just yet, But I really did enjoy that transition from the first section to the second section. People are saying the percussion is really good, and I agree. It's super punchy, it really comes through, and it gets our blood pumping, which is really nice. And what was I gonna say? Oh, yeah, I think the volume difference between the two sessions was a bit dramatic for me, though. Like, I felt that I had to turn up the volume a couple clicks to really hear the B session, what was going on. So I mean, you could still have sparse instrumentation, but still have the volume generally level. But the first section was definitely more upfront, super compressed with the drums and stuff, and then the second felt way more laid back. So maybe just finding more consistency there in terms of the actual volume itself. But yeah, I think the ideas are great. You didn't overstuff with too much orchestration. Like, it allowed the elements that you did have there to shine. And yeah, I think this is the second like sort of D minor sort of piece we had in a row. But I feel like D is a really solid place to start because it kind of has a more open feel. It's not quite as maybe, I don't know, innocent as like A minor or something, but it definitely has a bit of color there, which is really pretty. So yeah, great work.
I really liked this one. The intro right off the bat is fantastic. It really captures your attention. You can't ignore it. It's like, oh wow, what's this? And the live harmonica I think was a great choice. Sounded great. I like the way that the harmonica would kind of melt in and out of the melody in like a really like improvisatory way. Made it sound like the cowboy is playing his little theme, and sometimes it comes in really strong. I thought it was really nice, really tasteful. I think the struggle with starting out so strong is holding on to your audience's attention throughout the whole piece. That's the only thing. I think it did that, but it does slow down at the end, right? And that can sometimes kind of lose your audience's attention when it's really exciting towards the start. My only few little notes are that when you drop down to the second section, the percussion kind of ends quite abruptly. So maybe finding an easier way to just kind of transition a little smoother. And also, I know 90 seconds is like not a lot of time at all, but the ending also kind of dropped off quite quickly. But this is a really fun, great piece.
Yeah, someone beat me to it in the comments, but I do hear that D minor is the saddest of all keys. Yeah, I guess the one thing that I would add, I certainly liked that the harmonica was coming in and out and was sort of interacting with the rest of the arrangement. I feel that mix-wise, it was a little hot and a little like close, so that there were parts, especially later on, where I sort of didn't understand whether the harmonica was meant to be primary or secondary, because at least how it translated over the stream, it sounded like somebody else was taking the tune, but the harmonica's accompanying line was louder than the tune. So I might think about that if you were to reapproach the mix on this. Yeah, but overall, definitely a fun piece, and I definitely like that idea from a compositional perspective to have as Rachel was saying, it's kind of like we might be looking at a scene and then turning back to someone on their harmonica and then turning back to the scene, having them fade in and out is a pretty interesting thing to do. So nice job with that.
Awesome. Let's keep going. Next, we have Lonesome Cowboy at Grand Canyon from John Montrages. John.
Is this one me?
Yeah.
I really like the structure of this piece. I think, yeah, no, I think it's, I don't know what I was going to say there. Just thought escaped. But the overall structure made a lot of sense to me. I think there were some points when the harmony could be a little stronger to support the melody. It has moments where it's strong, and then, I don't know. I was kind of craving just like one part of the piece when it's just like really, really supported melody, and that's just the main, um, words are not working for me today. Wow. I hope you know what I'm trying to say.
Harmonic richness, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's, but I think like the harmony you have, it's working really well for kind of the mood that you're selling with this piece. And I think it's a really charming melody. It's lovely. By the end of it, I remember the melody. I also think it suited the photo really well, or the picture. I like this introspective and peaceful take. I think to me, that's kind of the interpretation that makes a lot of sense for this picture. The ending was a little unexpected for me. I think you seem to be super good at structure, so maybe just easing into that a little more so that the audience expects it a little better might help end that on a stronger note. But I think overall, this is lovely.
I'm taking the silence as my cue. Really, really lovely. I really enjoyed kind of a more steady, noble interpretation of the picture. Yeah, I thought the composition was really strong. This was really resonant for me. I feel like if I had heard it with full fidelity audio and been a little more immersed, I probably would have drawn a tear or two, honestly. Like great material. And I think there's I really liked the use of English horn, and I think there was a moment that was kind of fun where like the melody got passed from French horn to English horn, and I thought that was a nice that was a nice shift in color there. So yeah, really agree with some of those choices.
Yeah, really beautiful piece. I just love the underlying simplicity and earnesty. It's not even a word. The earnest feel between in this piece overall. It really works well for me. And yeah, the theme was super strong. And I agree that like I feel maybe we could have played a bit more with the orchestration choices. Like I felt like the low end was pretty well covered with the string instruments and other elements, but maybe just in the mid-range, closer up maybe to the melody, having a couple counter lines here and there could have fleshed that out even more. And I also find myself in terms of like MIDI stuff, I'm not sure what libraries you might have used here, but I found myself like, especially in the first couple statements of the theme, that I think the legato line was played all the way through from beginning to end without a breath. And I think that if you could find a halfway point where they could take like a quick 2-beat breath, maybe, sometimes that helps a lot in just making it feel more realistic, especially with woodwinds, right? And brass as well. They use a lot of breath too. So just be careful there that they're not all playing like 16-bar phrases in one breath, even though I guess technically the best players, if they're not playing at like a big intensity, theoretically I guess they could do it, but you don't want to risk it either. So just having that extra breath here or there might help a little bit too. But yeah, overall lovely approach. Very warm and very comforting, and I love that we transitioned from D minor to D major now, so a nice warm feel that really captures us. And like Gavin said, it's very emotional, so I really appreciate that.
Awesome. By the way, everyone, there is a playlist on the Composing Compositions channel of the finalists I can find. Not all 15 are there, but maybe we can find the rest of them at some point. But if you do ever want to hear one of these tracks back, just head over to that channel and find the playlist, and you can hear them. Okay, let's go on. Next, we have The Vast West and the Vigilante from Cody Hazel.
Is it me? I think
Gavin is first on this.
Gavin,
one.
okay.
Yeah, I liked that this sort of took. This is the way that I would have interpreted it if I didn't have instructions. Like this was. I'm glad we got one that really leaned into all of these, established patterns and referred to a lot of established techniques in the genre. Like I was reminded of some of the spaghetti western stuff, even a little bit of Pulp Fiction with like the tremolo guitar, like the picking there. I thought that was really fun to just sort of unapologetically lean into it. So great job there.
Yeah, a very catchy piece as well, like very strong theme and nice playing with the harmonies as well. Really like the da, da, like alternating between those two notes at the very end, just over and over, really driving that certain point home. That was kind of cool. And yeah, really fun instrumentation. If I had to guess, I would think that like a couple of the elements are live recorded, like maybe the guitars and the whistling. If I had to guess, I felt like maybe the trumpets and the strings were MIDI. So unfortunately, that gave me a little bit of a disconnect, because the whistling and the other element felt so real, the guitars, and maybe the orchestral stuff felt a little bit tucked back in the mix as well. It felt, yes, they're louder than the core elements, but I felt like maybe they could have been just a little bit higher or turn the lead elements down just a tad. But overall, I think the overall piece was very effective in what you were trying to achieve. And yeah, I like all the arrangement choices, great harmonies, and great theming. So yeah, definitely agree with what Gavin was saying there.
And I agree with both of them. I think using live instruments was really, really smart. And yeah, I think that brass and strings, they do stick out a little more just because the other elements sound really nice with the live. And so those ones for me felt kind of flat. I wish there was a little more like dynamic in them. This was a really fun piece, and like Gavin said, I like that you leaned into those like really Western instruments. It sounded like you had a lot of fun with it. Yeah, my only note is the ending. It builds compositionally, like the composition of it is perfect for an ending. I just wish it had a bit more dynamic in the mix so that you really feel it. It's like the ideas are there, so I wish it's just could just sell it a little more with the mix, and that's a little tricky to do. But you can always drop it down so that you can bring it back up again, you know, and that kind of gives the illusion that it's built even more. But no, this was really fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Cody. All right, next we have Gold Rush and Gunsmoke from Krishna and Gala.
Very cool, Krishna. Thank you for sharing this. Let's see. Okay, so for me, the big standout, aside from the great instrumentation, sorry, I know I'm feedbacking. Okay, aside from the instrumentation and
Yeah, wait for me to turn this.
yeah, sorry. And the good mixing is, I definitely did not expect that sort of modulation right there. So we were in the key D minor again, and then you just went down a semitone to C sharp minor, and it's like, when does that happen? You know, that's very, very unique. Definitely did not expect that. I thought maybe we'd go up a tone, like to E minor potentially, to step up the energy there. But sinking down a semitone almost feels like it's like almost retreating. But then the elements you had there built up the energy. So it was a combination of both of those things that really just made me go, wow, what was that? But in a way, it works really well too. So yeah, aside from the sauce I mentioned, I think that was the coolest thing that I noted personally.
This one's lovely. I really like your melody. I think, as people probably know from the last one, I love a good melody, and this is a good melody. The intro in the beginning, I think, was perfect execution to start out a piece. It made me really excited to hear more. Like that first little introduction of the melody, I was like, oh, what's this? I want to hear more of this, you know? So I thought that was really smart. The overall dynamic of the piece is great. Your execution of ideas is lovely. It's interesting compositionally. To me, nothing felt out of place, which is interesting, Christopher. I didn't even notice that. It seemed, yeah, nothing felt out of place, but everything still held my interest, which is a really good balance to have. And my only note is, I also feel like the ending for this one could have used just a little bit more to build to that last note. I think the ending was really strong, but maybe just a little tiny bit more. But this is a great piece. You should definitely be proud of what you accomplished with this.
Did I already say something? I didn't say something, did I?
It's all you,
right?
man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the only thing I would add, a thing that I enjoyed were the low brass stabs. I thought they were really, really chunky and nice. and helped to like add a lot to the energy of it. So I don't know, that was just the thing that stuck out to me in terms of orchestrational choices. So nice, that was cool.
Great. Okay. Next up, we have Red Rocks and Revolvers from David Magnus. Okay, I think Rachel starts us off on this one.
Okay, I lost track. I really love kind of like the swagger in this piece, like especially in the first half. It gives the piece a really strong character. It tells us a lot about the cowboy in this picture. And I think that it gives me a really strong image of who he is and gives a lot of context to the photo, which I really appreciated. And then halfway through when it switches up, which by the way, I was a really big fan of that switch. It was really fun. That tells us even more about his character. It's like we're constantly learning more about this guy. So that made it really enjoyable. I did catch kind of like the good, the bad, and the ugly theme in there, which I think is cool. It's nice. I'd be a little careful because it's like a very recognizable theme. So I did notice, like, once the piece ended, that's kind of the thing that was stuck in my head. And so I guess my only note for you was maybe sell your melody a little bit more so that that's not the thing, but that's definitely an opinion.
Imagine listening through hundreds of these, how often that... Well, thanks.
Yeah, this was a fun journey to go on throughout this piece, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm feeling really grateful to Ryan and team for giving us this curated experience, because this is really fun, and it's telling that this is also the first time that I've noticed that particular motif. But yeah, again, I just really liked how, unapologetically this leaned into some of these these elements that would evoke, like, oh, this is a Western. I think my one note in terms of the production, I was less convinced of the realism of the second half, like the jazz half, particularly like the brass sounded, by comparison, comparing it to the earlier half of the song, it sounded more artificial. So I would, these are kind of different mock-up tasks, like a jazz mock-up versus a classical mock-up. So, I'd be out of my depth for how to help you on that. But yeah, just a thing to think about when you're switching genres like that. You probably need to switch tools too, which I'm sure you did. But yeah, that's a tough order in terms of mock-up production. Tall order? That's the expression. Yeah, tall order.
Yeah, like the others, I also had a lot of fun with this one, and yeah, I don't really think I have many notes. The only thing was maybe just near the end when you've already introduced a couple of sound effects that are really fun and like unique and quirky. You don't necessarily need them too many times. I think near the end we heard that like like zinging away running effect like multiple times, and then we heard that shaker thing at the very end again, that percussion element. I don't think those were really necessary. You already had all your musical ideas, they were fleshed out really well, and everything seemed really cohesive. So I don't yeah, like once you have one or two fun little things in there, just to maybe establish certain ideas, I don't think you really need to restate them again at all if the vibe has already been carried by the other elements. But overall, the pacing was great, the arrangement sounded really good too, and everything felt mixed. That it was mixed in a great way too. So good stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Next, we have Across Canyon from Ferenc Battery. Okay, first on this one is Gavin.
Nice. Yeah, I liked how, this had a couple, it's as if we kind of went through a couple different areas and the music changed behind it. I liked how the instrumentation changed multiple times. It was cool to see, just to kind of evoke that story. The writing was really convincing and felt very professional, honestly. Like I wasn't take it didn't take much to suspend disbelief that I'm hearing this like in a game or in a film. So kudos to that. That's quality writing. That's it.
Okay. Sorry, Gavin, I was a little slow there. Overall, I again, I like the simple approach to this arrangement. Quite introspective, but it gave us a lot of room to appreciate the harmonies that you were trying out there. I like the variance in the harmonic rhythm, especially. You just played around with it near the end of the cadences, or sorry, the end of the phrases to wrap up each phrase, which is really, really pretty. I guess it was simple to the point that maybe I wanted to hear one maybe additional element in the mid range somewhere to help just fill up maybe the holes just a tad, but that's just a nitpicky thing. I think overall the theme was strong, and it just had that relaxed feel to it that worked for the image, and I thought it was quite relevant as well. So great work.
Yeah, wonderful job on this. I was a big fan of the production. The nuances in like the strings and the harps and the flutes. There are these like little flute flourishes that just sounded like so real, and not even just in the production, but compositionally, where it just felt like it's so natural, you know. And so I was a big fan of that. I thought that was lovely. Excellent work on that. I also love that it doesn't sound quantized. It doesn't sound like, you know, drag over the whole thing, quantize it all. It, like, again, sounded very real. It sounded very natural. It seems like you put a lot of effort into making sure that it sounded polished that way. So big props for that. I liked the little hawk sound, by the way. I have that in my notes. Just like, I like that. It's a nice little detail. It adds some fun to it. But yeah, I thought this was a very tasteful and like laid back but enjoyable arrangement. It got to be emotionally, like I felt it, you know. It really was beautiful. And I think if DreamWorks ever makes a Western, they better be hiring you. Awesome job. Thanks.
Awesome. That's everybody, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Next, we have When the Ancestors Speak from Ava Mazurek.
All right. I think it's me.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, really enjoyed this one. Really full mix and great ideas musically, harmonically. Melody was great. Great swapping between different instruments as well for your theme. I really enjoyed that too. I think my only note really is just that I felt the woodwinds maybe were a tad hot in the mix. Like they were pushed up to the point where, yeah, like yes, the other instruments naturally are kind of louder than those woodwind instruments, but if you're going to use them as the lead, you don't want to overstep either. So I think turning them down a couple dB, also adding a bit more room tone to them as well. They felt like they were recorded literally right next to the microphone. So I'm just curious, maybe we can add a bit of surround mic in there or room mic, whatever, to give it the bit more spatial element compared to the other instruments as well. That could help it sit even better. But yeah, I think that's the only thing. I really enjoyed the overall thing, and it felt really cohesive overall. Nothing was really standing out as being out of place or anything. So as a complete piece, it worked very well.
Yeah, I agree with Christopher that it's a good mix. And I thought that you make good space in your mix for each element. And so he's right, you don't need things to be as loud because you've kind of made some space. Um, I like that each of your instruments, like each element of your piece had a purpose. Like I didn't feel like anything was there for I was not no reason, but like everything felt like it had a clear purpose. It felt very focused. And I think that that's one of the reasons that your mix sounds really good too. So well done on that. And I also think that this suited the picture really nicely. It seems like there's a lot of story there, and the fact that he can see this whole landscape, it just seemed to work for me. So excellent job.
I thought that this told a very different story from the other submissions. Like, in the name helped to sort of solidify that when the ancestors speak. Remind me more, of this kind of like, maybe our hero is found in the desert by a First Nations tribe, and he learns their ways, or there's some sort of ceremony or something like that. And I thought that was a really creative take on it. So great job there, and great job, just exploring a different musical style than what we've heard so far. Really enjoyed that.
All right, things are getting juicy behind the scenes on the scoring. Things getting tight over here. Okay, let's go on to the next one. We have Lost Love from Maria Lazareva.
Really cool piece. Sorry to start too early. Really cool piece. Again, a great melody. I love the way that your phrases kind of waft onwards, especially in the first little bit of the song. The phrase just seems to like keep going on and into different directions, which I think is really cool, but it still sounds cohesive. It doesn't feel like it's getting lost, So well done on that. That's hard to do. The violin recording, I think, was really smart choice. I don't know if you play violin or if this is a friend or something, but really nice. It adds a lot of emotion to the piece, The arrangement's really nice. There's elements of this piece that I can hear working in like a classic Western type of arrangement. But I like that you kind of wrapped those elements up in like a different package, something that I wouldn't quite expect. I think it worked. I like the rhythm in the second half. It kind of reminds me of hooves, which brings it back to that Western kind of feel. Good mix on the percussion there as well. I don't know. I thought it was epic and I really enjoyed it. Good job.
Yeah. I'm such a sucker for sentimental stuff, like the the intro like really got me, and it was it was really satisfying to it was a really satisfying initial theme that it felt really good for that to get built up for it to kind of everybody now to a bigger kind of climax section. So really strong writing on that. This is another one I'd want to hear, kind of the true blue wave file, because at least in my experience of it, like the backing that it was like the violin was way out in front of the accompaniment in a way that I wouldn't necessarily want as much distance personally if I were mixing it. But I'd be curious to know what your intentions were on the mix by hearing it in higher fidelity. But yeah, again, just like excellent job on the composition, and yet another take. Like, this is a different story. This lost love. Like, okay, this is a different movie. So I really appreciate the creativity there.
Yeah. Like, for me, the live elements add so much. They make such a difference. And I mean, I guess leading into the live violin really solidifies this piece as something that just really works. This is one of those pieces for me that simply works on nearly every account. Like, there's a strong theme, there's great harmonies that are supporting that theme, the instrumentation makes sense. I definitely hear what Gavin is saying regarding the violin sounding a bit up front. Maybe it's just the fact that there's a lot of high end in it, and maybe it just feels like it's so close to us as well. So maybe taking a tad of high end off of it, because I feel like the positioning of it is actually okay in terms of the miking. Like, I feel like I hear the reverb in there. It feels like it's placed fine, but maybe it's just because there's so much detail in the high end. Maybe that's kind of the thing that's pushing it out just a little bit. And yeah, I just, like, if you told me this is a sampled violin, I wouldn't believe you. Like, it really does sound real to me. So I really do appreciate that. And yeah, just kudos for anyone who places real samples into real recordings, doesn't even make sense. Real recordings into their pieces. If they can afford that to do so, it does make a big difference. But yeah, just really interesting to see. So. Never mind.
What that's happening there? Everything just went out. Yeah. We all still here?
Yes,
we're here.
That was weird. It just booted me out of this live stream, but at least it kept it running, right?
Yeah. We're good.
All right. Was that the end of your thought there, Christopher?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes.
That was weird, but all right.
No,
at least it wasn't in the middle of a track. Okay, we have one more. We're almost there. The last one is On His Unique Way, and he said he wanted to go by either William or Will, so I just put what he said, William/Will, On His Unique Way.
Am I good?
Okay, Gavin's first. Yeah.
So fun. I loved the style of it. Kind of like the small ensemble and kind of very modern sounding. I almost felt like I just heard an NPR podcast on like westerns and I'm on the fade out, like that would really fit for that. Like it had a similar, I don't know, I guess like the way it was mixed or the way like what that ensemble sounds like and the tone of the bass and everything like that. Like send that to New York Times Audio or something like that. I think it could definitely work in a podcast context, honestly. But yeah, I thought that was another really interesting take. I like that it sort of, slowed things down and made it really, it was very rhythmic and kind of jammy, jivey. So yeah, very, very cool. And yeah, nice job. If sounded pretty live to me. So if there were samples used for any of this, great job, kind of, with the mock-up magic there. Sounded super live to me, and that was and well, the more live it is, the more alive it sounds. So it sounded very alive, which is a good thing. You want that.
I'm gonna steal that, Gavin. Or alive. I love that.
Put it on
I think
a
the
t-shirt. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, exactly.
TM. No,
yeah, I think the title is really fitting. This track is so unique too. And regarding the live stuff, yeah, I didn't even consider the fact that it could be a mock-up at all. I was just listening and enjoying it, vibing out, and it all felt so good. And maybe the reason is just everything fits so well together, and we were so focused on the actual musical ideas that were happening there, all the instrumentation, all made sense. And yeah, a pretty laid back feel as well. It's kind of swanky, like someone had mentioned, but it didn't feel sparse or empty either. So I think there was also always some sort of rhythmic element happening, some sort of harmonic element happening, filling in the holes, that there was never a moment of silence in any way. So it was quite an engaging thing. And yeah, now that Gavin mentions it, I think a podcast could definitely pick that up. It would make a lot of sense. Good stuff.
Yeah, really enjoyable piece. I think, yeah, like you said, Christopher, I think it was you. The title is very fitting. I think it really tells us who this character is. Really fun to listen to. I want to say huge props for doing something different with this challenge. I think this will be a good portfolio piece for you because it is really stylistic and unique. And I think one of the fun things about competitions is being able to do something different, try something different, and I think you did that with your piece. So well done. I think, yeah, nice panning. I'm glad to use you hearing nice space in your piece. Space between instruments is nice. I think for me, there were a few instrument flourishes that were a little bit jarring, a little bit loud in the mix. Oh, sorry, microphone. And I think it could use just like a mastering pass to get kind of your levels tightened up a little bit. But yeah, really fun. I wrote down here, it sounds like the saloon band after way too many drinks. And yeah, just fun. Thank you.
That's a fun image. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, everything got twisted upside down and around. If you guys could chat amongst yourselves while I just double check your scores and how it all adds up.
My main thought overall is just that I think, Gavin, we've said this before. Each competition we hear more and more stylistic differences and more unique takes, but somehow this feels like the most varied out of all of them so far, to me at least. And the production quality is getting better. Everything is just increasing, but just the sheer variety we can get and so many entries is amazing to me.
True. Yeah, and I wonder, it'd be interesting to know, is there a base rate of creativity and it's just the
right.
number of entries is growing, or is it growing, per capita?
Yeah.
But no, definitely an interesting range it takes.
Okay, we ready?
Ready.
Yep. All right. So honorary mentions, just the highest mark in a certain category. In the composition category, there were there were three that had the highest, that had tied for the highest score in just the composition category. which were Western Sunrise from Anton Akimov, Lost Love from Maria Mazareva, and On His Unique Way by Will. In the relevance category, the single highest score for that was Red Rocks and Revolvers from David Magnus. And then in the production category, we had a tie, One Last Ride from Aviv Shuker, and Across Canyon from Ferenc Batri. So the scores were crazy tight this time around, much more than ever before, which is pretty interesting. But let's see. So in third place, we have Red Rocks and Revolvers from David Magnus. Congrats. In second place, we have a tie, and that is between One Last Ride from Aviv Shuker and Across Canyon from Ferenc Batri. So you guys both came in second. And then in first place, our July 2023 composing competition winner is William for On His Unique Way.
Congrats.
Which totally upset everything at the end there and flipped it all around. I was not expecting that, but it's the role of these are just presented in a random order. I just shuffled the order, so it's not like no plot behind this or anything.
And you would expect like the later you get, the more ear fatigue you get too, right?
I would think so. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. If anything, the later in submissions are compromised.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Because you're like, oh, we've heard this before. I mean, I'm wondering if On His Unique Way is the title, and I'm wondering if that unique approach was part of it.
Yeah.
For sure.
So if we can, let's listen to that one more time, and then we'll sign out.
Sounds
Thanks
good.
everybody for joining us. Fun as always. Let's check out On His Unique Way. I mean, we just heard it, but we'll hear it again.
Sounds good.
To win.
Do it.
Let's do it.
All right, thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you at the next one, October.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.